For thousands of years, combat, war and conflicts have been great accelerators in the development of humanity.
As much as we acknowledge war to be a gruesome, bloody struggle in which many lives are lost and much is destroyed, we can also not overlook how society overall has collectively benefited from warfare.
War is fought for either survival or advantage, and so it then makes sense why it governs so much of our advancement, because we are very much fueled by these motivations. For the most part. And so it then makes sense why martial arts have been around for as long as they have.
Martial arts can mean different things depending on the individual. It can mean simply the art of war, lending to its history, or it can be about self-expression and how we interact with the world. It can connect us to religion, or to our beliefs, or just simply be a form of exercise.
Regardless of the meanings or philosophies behind it, those who practice all agree that practicing martial arts is better than not.
But such martial arts as Jeet Kune Do, Taekwondo, BJJ, or Wing Chun did not always exist. Martial arts has seen an evolution much like any other art form.
As today, we take a look at some early martial arts and see what's similar, what's different, and how martial arts became what it is today. But before all that, be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Our goal this year is to reach 2,000 subscribers. Let's make it happen. First, let's discuss a martial art which, while not used in combat or warfare directly, and was largely used for exercise, still holds a large amount of sway over our modern conventions of martial arts, and has a great amount of impact on our thinking.
The ancient Greeks frequently made a hobby of wrestling, with it being added to the early Olympics in about 708 BCE.
There were two great forms of wrestling, grounded and standing.
In standing wrestling, the players need to bring their opponent onto the ground 3 times in order to win. While in grounded wrestling, any part of the body could touch the ground, and the winner was decided by who was first to concede. There were many notable wrestlers, with them being compared in modern times to our own athletes, with statues and endorsements for the most successful combatants. With notable wrestlers including Phillies of Elis, Democritus of Tenedos, Chiron of Pellene, and Hipposthenes of Laconia.
With it even playing a role in the great thinkers.
Plato, for example, was a champion wrestler, with Plato actually being a given name in reference to his career and his broad-shouldered physique, a name given to him by his coach. While in Roman times, Marcus Aurelius partook in wrestling during his youth.
So while wrestling was recreational instead of the practicing of warfare, much like how modern martial arts is now, it does still lend itself to discipline, athleticism, and respect. But we can go back even further and take a look at a martial art which has played a far more crucial role in warfare, exercise, politics, philosophy. Yeah, we're talking about Kung Fu.
Kung Fu, or Chinese boxing, can be traced back to the Zhou dynasty of circa 1050 to 221 BCE, but some exercises can be traced to earlier. The legends surrounding the origins of Kung Fu involve the Zen Buddhist monk Bodhidharma coming to the Shaolin Temple from India, teaching the resident monks exercises to fight off sickness or weakness. These exercises, along with martial techniques some former soldiers knew, forms the groundwork for Kung Fu. This story, whether literal or a description of similar events, does outline some key factors, namely that other martial arts existed before Chinese boxing, which is logical, as Kung Fu is one of the oldest surviving martial arts, sure, but not the oldest. Although, not for lack of trying, Kung Fu has survived for so long because of its essential role in national politics as well as cultural significance. Since then, Kung Fu has grown, evolved, and developed through practitioners not only being willing to go outwards into the world and seek knowledge, as well as the temple itself receiving knowledge over time. But also it's important to not overlook its place in the political landscape of China. While the Shaolin Temple has in the past stood to revolt against the powers at play, the temple has stood as a key part of China's power, with notable examples including the story of the rescue of the Tang Prince. Continuing into today, although excluding the ban on practice of Chinese martial arts after the Communist Revolution, and the revival under the standardized wushu and the reforming of the temple, standing as a cultural landmark, bringing new students, tourists, and more importantly, money to the economy each year.
The history of the Shaolin Temple and Kung Fu is mirrored in the oldest surviving martial art, which it also turns out was the inspiration for Chinese boxing. We mentioned how the exercises which inspired Kung Fu made their journey from India to China. Well, where did those exercises come from specifically?
Kalaripattu. The year of origin is difficult to pin down, with there being traces of the martial art dating back to 15,000 BCE, with texts mentioning Kalariput by name dating to between 300 BCE to 300 AD, translating to mean practice in the arts of the battlefield. The martial art originates in the southwest of India, in the region known of today as Kerala, and partly in Tamil Nadu. There are three main styles of Kalaripattu: Northern, Southern, and Central, each with their own traditions and myths surrounding their formation. For a long time, the traditions and practices of the martial art were surrounded in secrecy until between the 10th and 12th centuries, when conflicts between states and dynasties caused the Kerala region to become more militarized, masters teaching more people their ways to defend themselves, and others using their knowledge for medicinal purposes. After the 17th century, there was a gradual decline in interest until the British colonized India, and seeing the warrior craft as a threat, banned the practice of Kalariput entirely, with the punishment being death or exile.
But it would not stay a Kalariput footloose situation for too much longer.
For by the 1920s, there was a push for cultural revolution, and Kalariput returned with a vengeance, with schools popping up all over the show, continuing to be practiced to this day, perhaps not as a means to practice warfare, but as an exercise and form of discipline.
But while these exercises have historically and currently served as forms of exercise and of recreation rather than means of practice of warfare, does that then mean that they are useless in today's society?
Because, let's be honest, even with martial arts catered for the military, such as Krav Maga, most modern warfare is ranged and fought over a distance, rather than in close quarters. Gone are the days of swords and spears, and here we find semi-automatics.
And besides, it's not as though too many of us are going to be going off to war anytime soon. Oh, bugger.
But life, while full of conflict and suffering, is not just physical. There are always challenges, hurdles, obstacles, obstructions, and changes to plans. Good and bad actions always carry consequences.
It is in our practice, in discipline, humility, focus, and patience, that we find, if not a solution, a way to carry our burdens without breaking and without succumbing to negativity. Thank you for watching this week's video, and in the comments let me know what your thoughts are on these various martial arts we've discussed. If you practice these martial arts yourself, then let us know, and we'll have a good old discussion about it. And if you practice any more modern martial arts, then feel free to talk about them as well. Let's have a good debate going. But until then, thank you all for watching, and until next time, peace be with you.